Good afternoon, dental internet world. My name is Dr. Vishal Sharma, and I'm once again here alongside my friend and colleague, Dr. Mike Parchewski. Mike, the podcast that we have focuses on the world of digital dentistry, and I can't think of a more appropriate guest to discuss that and to really follow along with the DNA of what our podcast entails. So it's good to see you. Podcast number 2 this week. I feel like we're becoming professional podcasters and leaving the world of amateur podcasting. But I'm going to say hi to you and allow you to introduce our guest.
Well, thanks, Vish, and welcome. And it's like deja vu, 2 days in a row. But it's great. I'm just very happy that we've been able to have such great guests come on. And today's no different. We have a special guest coming all the way from out east. I'm not sure what happens out that direction. But I've heard Montreal is a pretty cool place. His name's Adrian Marolly, and he's from Dentsply Sirona. He is the National Sales Manager for Digital Technology and several other areas, I'd imagine, as well. And he's going to go through that with us. So first, just give me a little bit more information on your role with Dentsply Sirona. And my big first question is, coming out of COVID, I want to know, given your experience overseas, having worked in Asia markets and Australia, what do you see globally as being the biggest revenue generator that's coming into our dental clinics?
Yeah, good. Thanks for the intro, Mike, and thank you, Vishal, for having me here this afternoon. Look, it's a great question. I mean, COVID's been different across different geographies, as you know, and people are coming in and out of it at different paces. But the one thing that is consistent across the globe is clear aligners. Orthodontics is the segment that's growing the fastest year on year, even going back to 2018 pre-COVID. The recent numbers, if we look at like the compounded average, the aggregate worldwide, we're looking at just under 25% year on year growth, followed very closely by implants at around about 15% year on year. So the next segment below that is aesthetics. You know, people aren't traveling as much. People have more disposable income. They're starting to take care of their health a bit more and, you know, treating themselves. So yeah, those are the three I would say that are trending up right now.
And so why do you see clear aligner therapy, and obviously for Dentsply Sirona, Suresmile is the flagship aspect of that treatment. Why do you see clear aligner therapy as such a strong growth market, Adrian? Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, look, I believe that the reason why clear aligner is becoming more and more important is because, you know, that market exploded roughly 10 years ago with the creation of the concept. And it took a while for the specialists, particularly the orthodontists, to jump on board. And the reason why there was so much resistance, I think, is because a lot of the orthodontists didn't necessarily believe in the technology. But what happens is you cannot fight a market. If the market demand is there, you are going to have to, you know, make sure that you can satisfy that market. And at some point you have to succumb. And I think that's what's happening. The market is so in demand of, you know, we're talking about Instagram, we're talking about Snapchat, we're talking about Zoom. You know, like, I mean, I'm fed up of Microsoft Teams and, you know, being online all the time. But people are looking at themselves on their cameras every single day. And if they see something that they don't like, well, guess what? It's in their face every day. So I think COVID had a lot to do with it, just because of the digital revolution and being, you know, in front of a camera nonstop. You're forced to look at yourself. And again, the disposable income, you know, people are traveling less. Home renovations are up, and so are clear aligners.
I heard one of the driving factors for Tom Cruise was exactly that, is when he started seeing himself, you know, on the big screen, especially with the 4K, the development of 4K. It highlights all the flaws. You're in that spotlight and everything zoomed. Was one of the drivers, and I know he went into the aligner therapy.
That's right.
So, you know, it's even the movie stars are taking on to the aligners. And I've noticed too with the, I don't know about you, Vish, but a lot of the orthodontists were really, like several years ago, were really against it and have really started adopting it way more. And so even you see the marketing out of orthodontic clinics being more clear aligner based.
That's right.
Yeah, well, I think Adrian hit the nail on the head in that a lot of it is just market demand, and you've got to satisfy your customer base, something that you and I are talking about all the time. And so even if you prefer to utilize the technology that you learned in school, really you have to adapt to what the consumer is going to want and what they're asking for. And I think the technology has just become so much more predictable. And that's one of the things that Suresmile is constantly advocating, is just the speed with which they can achieve the optimal end result. So Adrian, just furthering on that for the dentist listeners that we have, how are they able to take advantage of this significant growth opportunity and really be on the leading edge of this rising tide? Like, what would your suggestions be given your knowledge base and your role?
Yeah, well, great question, Vishal. Look, I think it's pretty evident, right? If the market is demanding, if the patients are asking for something, well, the first thing is, if you're not offering them, well, you should probably get into clear aligners and offering Suresmile in particular, obviously. But so there's another stat that came out. We did an in-house survey over 250 offices, and 83% of patients said that they would have, so these are patients who have already had clear aligner therapy, said that they would have started clear aligner therapy earlier had someone spoken to them about it.
Wow.
So just the fact that, we're not, whether it be on your new patient form, or whether it's, in your hygiene appointment, or even if you're not asking the question, they want it. You just have to, you don't have to necessarily lead the horse to water. You just have to ask the question, and it's there. So
simple as that. Yeah.
Now, on the whole process of the dentist getting more involved, so for us, I know having the Primescan is huge. Being able to use the ortho software, there's been big changes I find in the newer ortho software from where it was previously, that is allowing, I think, better case communication to patients. Because one of the things we always train is educating our patients and showing our patients the like the implant workflow, showing the patients the CBCT, showing the patients their teeth and the movements is a big seller. And I think that was really a cool thing about when aligners came out, was the ability to have that movie that plays showing it. And one of the neat things I find in the ortho software is you can play that movie on a new patient. So you can scan them and show that to them right away. Now, the other part of this is obviously when we're taking on these cases, there has to be some sort of return on investment. And this is where you're more of a business expert on this. So with the Suresmile process, how are dentists realizing improvements in their clinics and in their ROI? What kind of numbers are coming out? What kind of flow is this adding to their clinics? And is this really a strong investment for dentists?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. I mean, both of you can probably answer that question better than me, because you're using the technology and offering the service. But some of the ROI calculators that we show a lot of your colleagues revolve around just two new starts of Suresmile a month. Over a year, you're looking at just over $220,000 of additional top line revenue. Now, one thing that's, talking about ROI, we all know that, with orthodontics, whether it be traditional or clear aligner, ensuring that we're quoting or giving up a price to a patient, you should have a pretty good control over the time that you're going to be seeing that patient, right? Mm-hmm. So one thing that Suresmile really distinguished itself with a lot of the other manufacturers in the market is that they're, versus a leading competitor, you're going to have 50% less refinements. And for me, refinements means money on the table, mm-hmm. right? Because you don't account for that when you're quoting that initial. And then not to mention the other intangible, or I find even worse, I mean, we're all in the referral business. That's what we are in. And if I commit to somebody and saying, okay, we'll finish our orthodontic treatment in 12 months, and now it's month 15, 16, well, you know what? I was getting married on month 13. That's why I did it, and so you do get, you'll probably lose a bit of the referrals moving forward, at least for clear aligners, from that perspective. So that's my take on it. I don't know what you guys think.
Mike?
Well, I find, not only does it, does using the Suresmile, I think, also captures more revenue, but I also think that using the imaging software adds to our new patient exam in a lot of different ways, right? So I think using the Primescan as a tool in the new patient exams allows us to diagnose these types of cases. But I also think that when patients come in for Suresmile consults, the fact that we're able to take digital impressions and then show them their teeth, oftentimes we can highlight other problems that we need to get corrected beforehand. So, let's say there's some old fillings, some old restorations, other dentistry that's required. So I think there's also this additive revenue that comes in. It's just like when we treat sleep apnea. When you're treating sleep apnea, it's a very, when you're making these appliances, you don't want to have a lot of dentistry changing because everything's very form fit.
For sure.
Or if you're going through a Suresmile case, you don't want to be, you have a broken tooth, but we'll do it after the Suresmile because it may be in more trouble later. Mm-hmm. So a lot of times you have to get the underlying dentistry done first. And so I find that there is that additive effect in diagnosis that when you're starting to add another treatment, it does dovetail into other things you do in your clinic by also bringing in new patients, but also being able to have to get perio-stable. Mm-hmm. If you're not going to start treating, somebody, I have a lot of patients that come in for a Suresmile consult and they haven't had a cleaning.
Right.
So they're going to need these things first. So it does drive other parts of your office's revenue stream as well, right?
Yeah, no, I agree. I think the ROI indirect as well as you're talking about is something we were chatting about earlier as well is just how that the scanner will become the integral part of your office. Like, at the moment, some of the stats in North America anyhow, some just under 50% of offices at the moment have scanners. Now, will that be 80% in the next 3 years? I would hope so. I would think so. However, if you look at the offices, out of those just under 50% that do have scanners, over 25% of them have multiple scanners in the office. So they've gotten it. They've realized that the our intraoral scanners now have replaced the intraoral cameras, which brought up our case acceptance X-fold, call it 10, 12 years ago. But now we're doing it in 3D because patients always think in 3D. They do not think in 2D. So, and to your point, these wellness scans that, I encourage everybody to do, if you come in, new patient or not, take the scan, hold it in records, and sit down and have that co-discovery, turn that around to your point, look at the perio, look at everything, let them discover exactly what's going on in their mouth. And then obviously the case acceptance goes up exponentially.
Yeah, it's interesting that you're discussing less than 50% of offices have a digital scanner. It's a surprising statistic for me, but I would agree with you. I would see in the next couple of years, Adrian, that starts to increase significantly. And also an interesting stat on offices having 2 scanners, which both of us would, I suppose, fall into that category. So let's shift to that because digital impressions is obviously a big part of what Mike and I both do. It's a topic that I've been recently giving some presentations and discussions on. And so what is the main aspect, at least from Dentsply Sirona's perspective, as to why we're entering into digital impressions? Is it the aspect on removing impression material, or is it sort of the centerpiece component that you're discussing?
I think more of the latter. I think, there's a place for PVS knowledge in it. I'm not going to knock on it too much, but at the end of the day, the science is behind it. The Primescan is, the most accurate scanner in the market. There are other scanners that are very comparable as well. I think you should just embrace digital for a couple of reasons. Again, coming back to our liner conversation, why is clear liner market growing so fast? Because it's demand driven. Mm-hmm. Well, guess what? If I'm a patient and I know that I have to go get goop in my mouth at this dentist, and at this dentist I can take a minute and a half and have a full scan done, it'll become more and more patient-driven as well. So, and it just leads the perfect workflow, right? Like if we look at Primescan, scanning into orthodontics, scanning into a CEREC, if you're, milling in-house, and that's another ROI discussion that we can get into I don't know if we'll have time or not. But then sleep, like you were talking about, it's the integral part of everything. And more importantly, implants. I know Mike has an amazing workflow with implants, and being able to take that intraoral 3D data and stitch it at under 50 micron accuracy over a cone beam scan, patients are not just impressed; they feel a lot more entrusting in you in carrying out those procedures. So.
Yeah, and I think that's like a big part of what we teach is the digital implant case presentation, because I also think one of the biggest sides of all this, like Vish alluded to with the digital impressions, is that the more we can show our patient, it's that intraoral camera on steroids now. We're taking it a whole nother level. It's like virtual reality of the mouth, right? And so patient is like sitting in their mouth, looking at all their teeth, not seeing a view that they've ever seen before. And we take it a lot for granted. And I don't know about you, Vish, with your experience of it. I've had a lot of patients where they come in and they say, one tooth's bothering me, and we did a big filling or a crown, or we did something and the bite's a little bit off, and they're like, yeah, it's been bothering me for a while, and they kind of like look at you this skeptical, why did you do this to me? And they have no recollection that we just showed them all these intraoral photos of this tooth that had a massive filling broken in half. They seem to always forget what's going on. And so I think having the records, having the images, having this for discussion really drives it home. But I do feel that they also don't have any idea what's happening in their mouth as well. And we often take it for granted because we're so in tune as a dentist to what's in our mouth that we often take for granted that the patients don't look at their mouth the same way.
Absolutely.
You'll have a patient that hasn't brushed or flossed their teeth in a month, but it doesn't bother them at all. It would drive me crazy, but it doesn't bother them all. And we have to sort of figure that out and see that and take a look at things in the patient's perspective. And that's where showing them, and so I've had numerous patients go, hey, did you notice that, you have a lot of crowding on the bottom, and you show them the model and they go, oh, I never really noticed that. I never even took that into account. Would that be, it's not cosmetic to them.
Yeah.
It's functional. Would that make a difference? Would that make a difference with the chipping that I'm having going on? Would it make it easier to floss? Well, then I'm interested. They don't care maybe how it looks, but they had no idea that would be classified as crowding. So I think as dentists, we always have to remember that we have to, think like our patient, and we have to understand each of our patients, their different personalities, and the more we show them, the more we can realize what they really understand or don't understand and not take it for granted. And nowadays with the younger patients, and TikTok and all the social media, they see it all the time.
Yep.
They see what other people are doing, they want it, and it's gone are the days where you can just say to a patient, you need 3 crowns, you need 2 fillings, you need this, that, and they're like, which are you talking about? They want to see the teeth, they want to see what you're talking about, they want to see before and afters, right?
They have access to Google. So.
Yeah.
And co-discovery is important. It's a big topic that we discuss. I actually, strangely enough, just got an email from Dentsply Sirona, their marketing team, while we're sitting here. And they're a little upset that Mike leaked their 2022 marketing campaign. Primescan intraoral camera on steroids was actually what they were thinking about doing. So, and actually, strangely enough, Ben Johnson is going to be the spokesperson for that. So let's do a pivot here quickly. Adrian, obviously with your role in Australia, you were immersed deeply in the Primescan and the digital impression world. Let's discuss another trend, and that is implantology. And let's discuss how, that obviously field is growing, but specifically how it's underserved right now.
Yeah, good point, Vishal. I mean, between you guys, I know that you guys have fully bought into the need and the demand for implants. But at the moment, if we look at worldwide data, again, I just like to go worldwide, and then we'll break it down by North America. But at the moment, for GPs, 81% of implants are being referred out. Now, I don't know if that is alarming to you, or do you find that a shocking stat or not? But for me, it doesn't sit very easily with me.
I think, I was kind of surprised that we're at 50% scanners, even though you were surprised that it wasn't higher.
Yeah.
I thought we'd still be about 20 to 30%,
yeah.
But I know that that's a very popular rise. If you had to ask me the implant question, I would say it would have been 50-50. So I am a bit surprised, yeah.
Yeah, the concerning aspect from my perspective there is the aspect that a surgeon and then a restoring dentist are separating that procedure. That's the only aspect. Like if you're referring out and you've got a perioprost who's doing the entire process, I can understand that a little bit more effectively. But the thing that drove me to start placing implants was the simplistic cases that came back and were no longer as simplistic as they should have been. Yeah. And so, yeah, I do find that a little bit surprising. And you were discussing a further follow-up to that on implant preference.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so they're out of the 81% of dentists that are referring out, 11% of those dentists are actually dictating exactly which platform and implant system the surgeon should be using. So, at that point, specifically for, posterior cases, easy cases, no bone issue, why not just do it yourself? To take the time to upskill and keep everything in house. We know how important that is to a certain degree. And then, feel free to refer out the complicated cases.
Yeah. Puts a surgeon in a tough position as well. You're basically going in their kitchen and saying, these are the utensils and the pots that I want you to use when making your favorite meal. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's again, some stats that are just alarming that I want to highlight. I did want to say about, again, just not to fully change gears, but clear aligners, talking about demand and, what's happening, On a worldwide scale, the direct-to-consumer, because, we have to talk about the elephant in the room sometimes, is just under $1.5 billion industry. Now, just under 65% of those cases get rejected. That is all our market, right? So, again, there's a demand there. So if you're not asking your patients, have you considered clear aligners? Somebody else is doing it for them. Of course,
yeah.
So, not to harp on the clear aligner, but I just want to highlight how fast this market is growing. And, implants, again, 15% year on year. So again, it's just coming down to disposable income and people being a lot more, I don't think vain is the right word, but looking at themselves in the mirror a lot more often. So,
yeah, I think there's a different push in terms of health as well with some of the younger demographics. Like my father is in his 80s. If you would have told him 40 years ago that he would still be going to the gym 6 days a week, he would have told you he was crazy, let alone, all of his dentition. I actually have to do a CEREC on him next week when he's back in town. He broke a tooth. But that's obviously changed. But this younger generation and the generation just younger than us, we now know and they know that they're going to be around until they're 98, 99, 100. So it's certainly changed. There's for sure an aesthetic or a vanity perspective, but I think there's a big push on that component from health. And one of the things that Mike and I oftentimes talk about, and when I was in Toronto a few weeks ago, Adrian, discussing the course, the Suresmile course, simple implants and simple orthodontics is just that. They're fairly straightforward and simplistic, especially given the level of technology. 20 years ago when it was all fixed banded and you're laying a full flap and you're assessing bone from a pan or a couple periapical x-rays, it's a different story. But now with CBCT technology, digital impressions, and the predictive algorithms in orthodontic software, simple cases they're really just that. They're very, very straightforward and predictable. So I can see why that opportunity is certainly growing.
And that basically comes back to information is key, right? The more information the better. I think what has driven a dentist out of implants early on was they went to a course, they took a niche program, let's say they felt really gung-ho, they did a case with their team or their class for their program. They felt really comfortable. Their first case, they get into a 4-6 that they just did a steel ball pan. They get in there, all of a sudden there's not enough bone.
That concavity,
Yeah, implant gets exposed. They have trouble, maybe trouble with the flap, or the implant fails, and they have no idea why it fails. And a lot of times in the early on, it was over torquing.
Yep.
It was too tight at the coronal portion, especially on the lower, and then that led to necrosis in the first thread, and then the whole thing would fail. And because everybody for the longest time is more torque better, right? Mm-hmm. But so if you had a couple cases fail, just like sleep appliances, if you have a patient that you're cranking and you're never stop cranking, it's all you takes is one or two of those cases and you're gun shy. And I've heard that from so many dentists at my courses that say, I used to do implants. I'm glad I got my SL and this and that. And when I show them the workflow, they're like, well, you know what? I'm thinking about getting back into this. I used to do implants 10 years ago. I stopped because, again, it's one or two bad cases. And now I think with the CBCT, just like you said, with the more information, if we can be prepared better going into these cases, we can choose our cases better, but also we can feel more comfortable and predictable in our cases so that the case doesn't go over schedule. The case doesn't cause us to have 3 patients waiting up front and then our staff says no more implants. Yeah. I think that's a lot of it comes together, right?
Yeah, predictability is an important aspect of digital technology for sure. What is on the agenda for Dentsply Sirona Canada for the foreseeable future? Are you able to spill any beans? Or, actually, Dentsply Sirona Legal just emailed me and said, tell Adrian to shut up.
No more beans, yeah.
Well, I do want to take the time to talk really quickly about Dentsply Sirona Canada. It's only been a year that I've been back, but I am super duper proud, and I think you both have. I know Vishal's been there, but I'm not sure if Mike was super proud of our DS Academy in Toronto and Mississauga. So if anyone out there hasn't been there, please come. We are going to be not just leading the way in digital technology and implants and everything, but we want to be the leaders in education. You don't need products to just be dropped at your door and walk away. We want to be the ones partnering with you to not just, make sure you're getting 100% productivity out of whatever it is you're using, whether it's composite or whether it's, a CBCT or a treatment center. And we've got a live facility for that. We've got a sim clinic. I mean, have you both been there or just?
Yeah, I've been there a few times.
I've just done it. My courses virtually through there.
Right.
So I've seen it. I've seen Les walking around in there.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a stunning facility.
Yeah. And I've been to the one in Charlotte.
Oh, beautiful. Yeah. So I'm not going to say it out loud, but yeah, come to Mississauga.
Yeah. But you bring up a good point about it's that when you go to buy a BMW, you test drive it. You want to see it. You want to see it in the showroom, and you go. And that's really what this is allowing, dentists to see. Now, when Sirona was doing a lot of the factory tours back in Germany, when both of us have been to Germany several times, that was what was a game changer for me to get into the equipment, seeing how it was built, seeing the equipment, being able to sit in the equipment, test the equipment, try out the equipment, was a big thing for me, right? So now how do people, people that are listening, how do they get in touch with the Academy and say, look, I want to come for a tour, I'm going to be in the area? How do they get involved to be able to have these kinds of tours in Canada?
Yeah, good question, Mike. So basically any one of your Dentsply Sirona reps, and I mean for every dentist in Canada, you technically have 7 reps. So there's no lack of reps for each dentist. You're going to have an implant rep, you're going to have an endo rep, you're going to have a chair side, equipment, CEREC, a lab potentially rep, an equipment rep. So any one of those reps of yours can set up a tour for you. The doors are always open. Just make sure, because of COVID restrictions in Ontario, we do have limitations on how many people can be in the building at once. But the door is wide open. The facility is for you, so please come and use it. On our website, we've got on Dentsply Sirona Canada's website, on an education tab, a whole bunch of courses that are slowly becoming more and more in-house that were virtual. And the idea is just to get over 35% of dentists in Canada through to our facility, so that they can understand. It's kind of like I call it dental Disney World, basically. And this one is really, really nice. We did build quite a few of them in Australia too, in all of the main cities, and I know that it works, and I know that it is just a great place to be, and people feel at home. If you're going to a course and you've got the chairs, the high speeds and everything, and it's not your shop, so to speak, you still feel at home, and you still feel like you're part of the bigger dental community. So
yeah, Adrian, just to echo that, it is a fantastic facility. I do feel, though, that Mike's going to be a little bit disappointed now because you compared it to Disney World. There is no Dentsply Sirona Harry Potter World room, so your Avada Kedavra is going to just have to be relegated to HBO Max or wherever you're watching that on.
So don't bring my wand.
You certainly can. It's domestic travel, so they're not going to stop you at the border with that thing. Shifting over to the magical kingdom, Dentsply Sirona World in Las Vegas is happening in a few weeks. Mike and I are both going. We both booked our ticket. Tell us what's in store down there, Adrian, and what you're excited about DS World 2021.
Yeah, I think for those who haven't been to any DS Worlds before, we're super happy to get it back live again. It was been a really rocky road leading up to September 23rd when we're going to be launching DS World. I'm not going to lie to you, like all the tracks are still super. I love all the tracks on case acceptance. I've really been big on case acceptance, I'd say, in the past 6 months because I don't think we put enough emphasis on it, and we don't put enough emphasis on auxiliary staff. We're talking about scanning. Just under 74% of scans are taken by auxiliary staff, right? And when it comes to case acceptance, a lot of that happens with the hygienist and the assistant, and it's just because they see eye to eye a little bit better with patients, I find anyhow, and they're a lot more open to accepting treatment when the doctor leaves the room and they're like, hey, do I really need this crown? Right? That happens all the time. We know it. And so the fact that, we're delegating the scanning more and more to auxiliary staff, it should obviously increase your case acceptance if we're training our staff. So just to get back to DS World, I think the case acceptance stuff is really exciting for me. Sleep, there's a few sleep apnea series that I want to go to. And more than anything, I just want to see people again. Like, it's been a long time. I relocated across the world in the middle of COVID and have been pretty much living in a dungeon for a while. So it'll be good to get back. There was a time when we came to DS World with over 60 dentists from Australia and New Zealand. And
wow.
We're not going to do that this year, but what I'm trying to say is like people want to see each other. So what about yourselves? What are you looking forward to?
Well, it's certainly a favorite event on both of our calendars. I think the social interaction and the networking is obviously paramount to me. And, kind of everything we've geared our practice towards, which is high tech, high touch, co-discovery, lots of explanations. A lot of my mentors are based in and around the Dentsply Sirona world. So they'll be lecturing there. Samir Puri, Mike Scram's dad, Mina Barsoom, my friend out of Chicago. So I'm excited to see them. And then really just the Harry Potter slots is kind of the main aspect for me. Yeah. Those dollar slots, especially where the Canadian dollar is right now, it should help drive the economy. Mike?
Yeah, I believe the slot machines are the best, the way the stock market
it's great ROI. You want to talk about clear aligner therapy, just go down to the Vegas slots.
That's the way to go. I'm looking forward to, obviously, same as you, Vish, catching up with a lot of the key opinion leaders down there. People that I haven't seen face-to-face since 2019. The other thing that I'm looking forward to is, I think, just catching up on some of the latest, what's happening in 3D printing, what's happening in some of the implant workflows, just to get caught up. Again, it's just always, anytime I take more education, I always get pretty jazzed up about things that I can learn or add. You learn one little point in a lecture, and I think it's makes a big difference. So I think it's me just actually getting back to some in-person stuff will be enjoyable.
Yeah, we're certainly looking forward to it, and we'll hopefully see a lot of you down there. Adrian, thanks for your time. You've got some exciting things going on with Dentsply Sirona Canada. Congratulations on the Academy. I was there and was fortunate to be able to present out of the Academy a few weeks ago. It's a stunning facility. So for those of you who haven't had the opportunity, certainly go on to the website, Dentsply Sirona Canada, and look for some upcoming tracks and certainly make the effort to get there. If you're not going to be at the Academy, hopefully we see you down in Vegas. And Mike, I'll throw it over to you to wrap up the podcast for today.
Great. Thanks, Vish, and thanks, Adrian, for coming. Great to have you here and to get caught up on some of the business of dentistry. For everybody, please like or subscribe, and whatever platform you're watching to us, do the same. And if you're looking for us, it's at our Instagram is at Digital Workflow Dentistry. Our website is www.digitalworkflowdentist.com, and all the links are in the bio on our Instagram. Everybody take care and stay well.
Thanks, everyone.